Every game has its legends, players who have reached a tier of excellence that very few can challenge, and everyone dreams of reaching. It's these players who write history, challenge what is possible, and change the landscape of the game forever. In its 15 years of existence, Osu has had its fair share of legends throughout the years. Whether it's insane longevity, unmatched prowess, reality-defying score-setting abilities, or a legacy that ripples throughout the community, these players have changed how we see the game of Osu forever. But with how long these players remain at the top, it's only natural that these are the only players anyone ever talks about. They're the ones getting the most eye-catching scores, they're the ones winning all the tournaments, and as a result, the community as a whole tends to gravitate towards these players. But as the eyes of the community shift towards them, it allows everyone else to work in the shadows, and emerging from those shadows comes a player ready to challenge their throne. A player who took the community by storm and left the game's best players in his wake. And in a time where Osu has been dominated by the same handful of players, he was the one that broke these stale narratives. Not too long ago, he never won a single tournament. Now he's taking names on the biggest stages Osu has to offer. But things weren't always the happiest, filled with more losses and heartbreak than victories. And as quickly as he rose to the top, he could have just as easily ruined everything in the process. However, in spite of the challenges he faced, he found a way to make it to the top and dominate. His name is Utami, and with such an unbelievable mastery of everything within the game of Osu, he's become capable of vanquishing anyone that crosses paths with him. It's a name people fear, because everyone knows if you give him even one chance, it's all over for you.
His name is Utami, man.
Are you telling me that the name Utami instills fear in you as well?
Utami has done it! He's proven himself on the world-class stage!
Utami is a Filipino-American Osu player from California who first heard of Osu in mid-2015 after seeing a few Osu videos pop up on his YouTube recommended feed. Specifically, the play that stuck out to him was Cookiezi's iconic 99.97% 1/100 FC on Freedom Dive. Additionally, the 2015 Osu World Cup stood out as another massive inspiration for him, and he wanted to be just like the other players representing their country on the biggest stage Osu has to offer. This led to a strong attachment to the game. However, he wasn't actually able to play. At this time, he didn't have a computer and couldn't play Osu at all. Thus, he was relegated to watching other top players and the scores they were setting. To wait out the time until he would get a computer, he would view replays of top players and pretend that he was playing the game as if he was the one setting those scores. After months of doing this, he would finally get his own computer and begin his own Osu journey. On December 3rd, 2015, Utami would register his Osu account and his longtime attachment to the game would show itself starting out. The first few months of his Osu journey was littered with thousands of plays every month, and with his frequent activity, it was only natural that his improvement would really begin to show. Just 3 months after he started playing, he would get his first 100 PP score on February 19th, 2016 with a hidden FC on Coma. With the exception of October and December, 2016 saw Utami logging a play count of at least 1,400 each month. By the end of the year, he would reach the top 50,000 on the Osu rankings on December 16th, and 5 days later on December 21st, he would set his first 200 PP play on Shinsaku no Shiwase wa Kochira. However, once the start of 2017 rolled around, his activity would slowly diminish. In comparison to the thousands of plays he would log in the months prior, his play count would drop to the mid-low triple digits as his activity slowly became increasingly sparse. Being much less active in the first half of 2017 in comparison to the months prior, it seemed like Utami's improvement would decline, or at least stagnate due to the increased inactivity. But once Utami started playing frequently again in the latter half of 2017, it was as if none of his skill was lost. On September 13th, 2017, he would set his first 300 PP play with a hidden FC on Paradise's Paradoxum. And just a month after, he would reach the 4-digit ranks on October 29th, 2017. Utami had only been playing for about 2 years at this point, but he was showing that he was capable of playing all sorts of maps with any combination of mods, whether it's no mod, hidden double time, you name it. However, this rapid improvement wouldn't last, as in similar fashion to the start of 2017, his play count come 2018 would once again plummet into the low triple digits. And eventually, his play count would reach the lowest it had ever been. Utami's play count in 2018 would bottom out at 0 for 3 months straight. Why did this happen? Was he no longer enjoying the game? Did something happen to him? Well, one fateful and cruel day, Utami was just returning from the bathroom after taking a shit, and when returning to his setup, he saw that his PC completely broke down. Yes, this actually happened. His first PC, which he had used to start playing Osu in the first place, was starting to act up. Utami would try his best to play on this scuffed setup, but he can only do so much as his computer was already on its last legs, and inevitably, it would stop working. Thinking about it this way, it's impressive that he was able to rapidly improve despite his setup being somewhat of a hindrance at times. Dealing with the lag and occasional frame drops can be really frustrating, especially in a game like Osu where consistent focus is required throughout the duration of every beat map. Yet, Utami made things work throughout all the additional challenges he had to face, but now he had to wait a few months for his parents to get another PC for him. Utami would get a new PC in October, and with his motivation not wavering, his play count immediately skyrocketed back into the thousands. You would think that being inactive for several months would dull someone's skills and would require a long time for them to get back to the level they were previously at. But ironically, it seemed like his first PC breaking down was the catalyst for Utami's rapid improvement in this time. Just a month after he started playing the game again, he would set his first 400 PP score on November 4th with a hidden double time score on Bombs Away, worth 414 PP. And by the end of the year, on December 27th, he would reach the top 5,000 by playing Reform's difficulty on Will Stetson's Snow Halation with hidden double time. It was a great recovery considering that he was inactive for 3 months, but things would only continue to get more impressive from here. At the start of the new year, Utami would set his first 500 PP score on January 2nd, 2019 with a hidden S rank on Legend of Millennium, which was 526 PP at the time it was set. This rapid improvement would snowball in the upcoming months, and on June 29th, 2019, Utami would reach the 3-digit ranks. At this point, it was very clear that Utami had become very proficient, fully capable of playing all sorts of maps and setting any scores that he puts his mind to. With this wide variety of skills, he felt like it was time to test himself in a way he had never done before. And what better way to do just that by playing on the biggest stages Osu has to offer. Upon reaching the top 1000 on the Osu global rankings, Utami decided it was time he would dip his toes in the Osu tournament scene. This is a drastic change for any player to make, especially considering the nature of Osu tournaments. When playing by yourself, you can take things at your own pace, play the maps you want to play, and there is no pressure to perform. You can always retry maps whenever you want, and you can play at any time you please. But with tournaments, things get challenging really quickly. Map pools feature maps that test your weakest skill sets, scheduling and planning matches is a massive headache, there is a degree of strategy with map bans and map picks, and your nerves are put to the ultimate test. You only get one try for each beat map, and tournaments test a player's ability to perform right on the spot despite the pressure of the moment surrounding them. With this in mind, you would think that Utami's first tournament experience would take place on a much smaller level so he can ease into competing. But no. Utami's first tournament saw him participating in North America Tournament 2019, or NAT 2019 for short. This is one of, if not the, most prestigious North American tournament series Osu has to offer. It also didn't help that one of his opponents in the group stage would be Freddie Benson, who had become the #1 ranked Osu player a month prior to the start of the tournament. The rest of his group wasn't much easier, as it featured Idan and Leftovers. Things were immediately looking scary, but how did Utami end up faring? Well, the group stage turned out to be surprisingly great for Utami. He didn't have to play against Freddie Benson and Idan because they didn't show up to their matches, giving him an automatic berth in the bracket stage. His first official tournament match would take place against Leftovers, which he would win 5-2, leaving the group stage undefeated. It was a bit of an odd start to his first tournament, but now he was in the main bracket where he would meet Explosion Boom in the first round, and he took him down 5-1. Utami was already outperforming all expectations in his first tournament appearance, but this would be as far as he would get as his next opponent, Itki, promptly swept him 5-0, and he would be eliminated from the tournament after he overslept prior to his match against Takedo, giving him a respectable top 24 finish at NET 2019. He had the potential to grow into a scary tournament player once he got more experience under his belt. And knowing that he was capable of doing more, he continued to attend more Osu tournaments. His next major tournament appearance would take place at Game Osu Tourney 4. This tournament featured what was then the largest prize pool in Osu tournament history at 5,000 euros, and it was only natural that it would attract the best competition Osu had to offer. It featured players such as Cookiezi, who is widely regarded to be the greatest Osu player of all time, Vaxei, who is considered to be the greatest Osu tournament player of all time, and other highly recognizable top players. This would be an even tougher test for Utami, especially considering that he was still getting used to the tournament scene. He would just barely qualify for the tournament as the 61st seed out of 64 players in the main bracket. And his first match pitted him against Apraxia, the #4 seed of the tournament, which Apraxia would win 5-0. This sent Utami to the losers bracket where he would play against Umbre, a player well known for his high accuracy plays on maps that featured long death streams. This earned him the community-given nickname of the Human Metronome. Umbre was a top 40 player, while Utami had just barely reached the top 1000, and looking at it this way, things looked lopsided. But surprisingly, that match didn't turn out that way, It was Utami who stood at match point when he took a 4-2 lead, but Umbre would bring it back and even the match at 4-4, forcing the tiebreaker map to be played. Given that this was the loser's bracket, both players had to perform well on the tiebreaker to save their tournament life. And Utami came up huge. Although he didn't have the best accuracy, Utami would close out the match with an FC on the tiebreaker, defeating Umbre 5-4. While this match was only the first round of the loser's bracket, this victory was a massive motivator for Utami to continue competing. After all, he just beat a top 40 player who he should have been obliterated by on paper. Maybe he got a bit too excited because he was forced to forfeit his next match against Jordan the Bear because he broke his monitor while playing Rocket League. But things were looking up for Utami. Even though he was competing in tournaments now, he continued to improve overall as a player. Prior to game Osu 4, he had set his first 600 PP play with a hidden double time 1 miss on Fiery's difficulty of Quaver on August 17th worth 666 PP. And by the end of the year, he would reach the top 500 after getting a hidden double time FC on Marshmary. The upsides of his skill and the potential that he showed were stronger than ever, and it seemed like Utami was ready to take the Osu community by storm in the near future. However, things don't always go to plan. While Utami seemed capable of making waves in the tournament scene, his results told a different story. His results more or less stagnated in the future months, and nothing seemed to click. This is mostly attributed to his lack of tournament experience at the time. Sometimes he would mishandle his bans and map picks, and other times he would just inexplicably bomb out of the tournament, sometimes not even making it out of the qualifier stage. After his top 24 finish at NAT 2019, he wasn't able to surpass that placement at any tournament for a whole year. Things were starting to get a bit testy for Utami. He might have had the skills necessary to become a superstar, but things were just not falling into place. Having your first ever tournament be your highest placement after a year of competing is not a good sign whatsoever. It wasn't until Osu Ancient Tournament 2 where Utami would end this curse. This put him at a new personal best 9th to 12th finish at an Osu tournament. Finally, it seemed like Utami was once again picking up steam in competition, and he looked to carry this momentum into other tournaments. But not even Utami could have predicted the events that would transpire. July 2020 marked the start of Kanyo Cup 2, a 4v4 tournament series featuring a format where all the team captains draft players for their teams to form an 8-player roster. Utami was selected by GS Blank on the Division 2 stage of the draft, and with this roster of players, they formed a team simply called Zero. By this time, Utami established himself as a top 300 player capable of setting scores around the 800 PP range, getting his first 800 PP score on July 24th with a hidden double time FC on Start Again. He was by far the highest ranked player on his team, and according to the BWS rankings, they were the highest ranked team in Division 2. So with this additional expectation being placed on this team, how would they fare? The group stage went really well for them, and they would advance into the main bracket without losing a single match. And in the main bracket, things would continue to go well. They would take a 6-3 victory over Theft Musical to make it to the winners bracket semifinals, a 6-4 victory over Uchiha Clan to make it to winners finals, and with a 7-4 victory over Smack Kanyo 2, they were in the winner's side of the grand finals. For Utami, this was uncharted territory. Not only was this the first time he ever made it into the top 8 at any Osu tournament, he was one match win away from winning his first ever tournament. And in the grand finals, Smack Kanyo 2 would meet them once again to decide the Kanyo Cup 2 Division 2 champions. The grand finals would be the third time that these two teams would face each other. Their previous matches were close, but somehow, things would get even closer. Zero would take an early lead in the match after a breakpoint put them at a 2-0 lead, which they would stretch to 3-0 after they won their next map pick. However, Smack Kanyo 2 would take a breakpoint of their own and close the gap to 3-2. But a follow-up breakpoint from Zero on the very next map would give back their breakpoint advantage, which would give them a 5-2 lead. Smack Kanyo 2 answered with another breakpoint to shrink the lead to 5-4, but a third breakpoint from Zero would put them at match point with a 6-4 lead with their pick coming up next. Just one more map win would win them the match and the entire tournament, but things wouldn't come that easy. Smack Kanyo 2 would steal Zero's potential game-winning map pick, and after winning their final pick of the match, this match was tied at 6-6 and needed to be decided on the tiebreaker map. The tiebreaker was underway, but Zero had gained a sizable lead, and Utami had the chance to put things away as the highest combo on his team. He just needed to hold on, but then he broke his combo. The second half of the map was a total disaster for Zero. No one on their roster could hold any combo, and their lead began to evaporate. At the same time, both Umi My Mommy and Riot built massive combos in the latter half of the map, and the comeback was complete. Despite never having the lead a single time throughout this match, Smack Kanyo 2 would win 7-6. But things weren't over just yet, Because Smack Kanyo 2 was coming from the losers bracket and Zero had not lost a single match in the main bracket, both teams would have to play another match against each other in a bracket reset. And the very next day, these two teams would face up for the fourth and final time this tournament. With Smack Kanyo 2 resetting the bracket, it was now a winner-take-all situation between these two teams. The winners would be decided based on the outcome of this match, and with the mounting pressure of the moment, things were more tense than ever before. But Zero came out swinging. A breakpoint on the very first map of the match set the tone, and Zero was able to capitalize on it to give themselves a 2-0 lead straight out the gate. They would follow this up with another breakpoint to extend their lead to 3-0. At this point, both teams would not see themselves winning a single one of their map picks, and they would trade breakpoints back and forth. But this eventually meant that Zero would be on match point with a 6-3 lead with 2 more map picks at their disposal. Once again, they had the chance to close it out and win the tournament, and on map 10 up 6-3, they were well on their way to winning with a decent lead heading into the final stretch of the map. Things got testy, but despite the combo being held by Umi My Mommy, the combos being held by the players on Zero which—
It's enough! It's enough! 2.5k!
In heart-stopping fashion, Smack Kanyo 2 would steal the map by a margin of just 2,000 points, marking the 8th breakpoint in a row won in this chaotic Grand Finals reset. And they would finally win their own pick for the first time to bring the match to 6-5. Zero might have their last map pick left, but they were going through the same thoughts as they did in the last match. In the first match of the Grand Finals, they had multiple opportunities to close it out, and they couldn't. They had a lead, breakpoint advantage and all, and just couldn't get things done. Now they were on the verge of letting it all fall through their hands again. Surely they wouldn't suffer a fate like that again. Surely they wouldn't succumb to the pressure and lose yet another lead, right? Surely it won't happen again, right? Zero's final map pick started out very close, but it was Zero that would grab the lead in this map, albeit by the smallest of margins. Smack Kanyo 2 was bringing the map back, but after all their combos dropped, Utami was the only one holding a decent combo. Just like the last match, it was up to him to close out the match as the combo carry, but last time, he couldn't manage to do it. This time, he had the chance to redeem himself.
Your winners of Division 2 of Kanyo Cup 2 is Team Zero. Thanks to the amazing score from Utami. What a play.
Wow. What a performance. I can't believe they got all the way to 5 points to lose it. That is GG's to Team Zero. Wow, Utami, Vesprit, Minus.
In the end, Team Zero was able to hang on to their lead and win the match and the entire tournament 7-5. Utami's insane score propelled his team to victory, and his team earned their very own Kanyo Cup 2 Division 2 badges. For Utami, this was his very first tournament win, and the very first tournament badge on his profile. Finally, after all the struggles, he broke through and reached the summit. But most importantly, it showed him and everyone else that there are truly no limits for what he can accomplish. The momentum after his win at Kanyo Cup 2 would snowball into both of his improvement as a player and his tournament results. 2020 would end very nicely for Utami, as on November 2nd, he would set his first 900 PP score with the hidden double time FC on Anime Ban. And with the hidden double time FC on Miraizu, Utami would reach the top 100 for the first time on December 3rd, 2020, exactly 5 years after he registered his Osu account. By this time, Utami established himself as a legitimate threat to win tournaments whether he was by himself or on a team. His tournament results drastically improved and he was in contention for winning every single tournament he attended. His consistency across all skill sets made him one of the most desirable teammates to have, and one of the worst opponents to face if you weren't on his team. And seeing that one of Osu's premier tournament series was going to make its debut, with this newfound tournament consistency he found in recent time, it was now time for Utami to prove himself alongside the best talent Osu has to offer. April 2021 was the debut of the Perennial, and with its $8,000 prize pool, it was bound to attract the best players in Osu and become one of the most hyped tournaments to watch as a spectator. Utami was on the tribe, and just looking at the roster this team bolstered, they were one of the favorites to win the entire tournament. Emerging from the qualifiers as the number 3 seed, the tribe breezed through their first 3 matches, not losing a single map in the process. In the winners bracket semifinals, they would face off against the number 2 seed Wumpus, a primarily Canadian-based team loaded with superstar talent. On paper, this would be a tough, hard-fought match, but the tribe would take a convincing 6-2 win with relative ease. Their winners finals matchup would see them go against P-Model, the number 4 seed and the team responsible for sending the number 1 team in the tournament to the losers bracket in shocking fashion. With a 7-3 victory, the tribe made it to the winner's side of the grand finals, just 1 match win away from winning the entire tournament. Meeting them in the grand finals would be the #1 team in the tournament, the Nation. After losing to P-Model in winners semis, they won 3 matches in a row in the losers bracket, including the run back against P-Model in the losers bracket finals to make it to the grand finals. Given the last time that Utami was on the winner's side of grand finals at any tournament, it felt like something was bound to go wrong. Last time he was in this position, the situation blew up in his face, almost leading to a complete disaster where only last-second heroics could help him. This time, he was on the largest stage he had ever been on with some of the best players in the game. So, how could things possibly go wrong this time? Well, it turns out, nothing went wrong. A resounding 7-2 victory for the tribe gave him first place at the perennial, $4,000, and for Utami, this gave him his second tournament badge, his first tournament win without losing a single match, and this was by far his best tournament accomplishment. But things wouldn't stop there, as now he would test himself with 1v1 tournaments. He showed up for some Battle Royale tournaments, most notably for Osu Battle Royale 3 where he took second place, losing to only Flying Tuna, and at SoCal Flower Fest, he would take first place and earn himself a HyperX keyboard. These were more or less warm-up events for one of the biggest 1v1 Osu tournaments of the year, Corsair's Closed 2021. Corsair had already established themselves as a household name within the Osu tournament scene, most notably with Corsair Open becoming one of Osu's premier tournament series, rivaling the prestige of tournaments like the Osu World Cup. But while Corsair Open is a 4v4 team tournament, the introduction of Corsair's Closed featured a 1 vs 1 format with Osu's best players, and Utami was one of them. He would qualify for the main bracket as the #1 seed, and by quite a healthy margin as well. This earned him a first round bye in the main bracket, and with expectations for him higher than ever before, he was ready to do what it takes to win it all. He would win his first match against Kingling 6-4, which was a bit close, but at the end of the day, a win is a win. His next match would be against I'm a Fancy Lad, and this is where things went south. Fancy Lad would completely demolish Utami 6-1. It was just a complete and utter dismantling on all fronts. All Utami could do was hopelessly watch himself get torn apart in every way possible. Immediately, it seemed like he was underperforming under the pressure. And considering that his first matchup in the losers bracket would be Bartek, the second seed in the tournament, it was as if all hope seemed lost. But remember, it takes 2 losses to fully eliminate someone. And you better make sure that someone is completely dead before they come back to haunt you.
Last point needed against Bartek.
Utami with a 6-0 sweep against Mistia.
Over 100k in Utami's favor. This play is just sort of ridiculous.
Utami just took him down in a 7-2 manner.
With 5 match wins in a row, Utami would make it to the grand finals in loser's side. And the scary part about this is that he made this look effortless with comfortable wins across the board in all of these matches. Being in the loser's bracket is usually never a good thing. You have to deal with the pressure of being 1 loss away from elimination, and you have to win more matches just to make it farther into the bracket. But at the same time, it can light a spark within you. A mentality that allows you to put everything on the line knowing that it might be the last chance you will get. If you take 1 match win, it can very quickly snowball into multiple wins, creating momentum that cannot be contained. And that's exactly what Utami did. Waiting for him in the grand finals was Flying Tuna, the same person who had beaten him in Osu Battle Royale 3 a month ago. But this time, they were playing on a much bigger stage with even more pressure than ever before. And when the first match of the grand finals started, it seemed like Utami's momentum would carry over. A 7-3 victory for Utami to force a bracket reset was very telling for the tone being set throughout the match. It seemed like Utami would steamroll over everyone and complete one of the greatest losers runs of all time. But he still had 1 more match to play to decide it all. Both players headed straight into the grand finals reset match, and this time, things were much closer. And it's safe to say that this is one of the greatest 1v1 tournament matches of all time. Both players would win the first map picks of the match, but Utami would be the first one to take a breakpoint, giving him a 3-1 lead with his pick coming up next. And on that map pick, he would fall behind thanks to a massive combo Tuna had built up, but Utami always had the accuracy advantage. And towards the end of the map, he had the combo advantage to take it back at the last second to give him a commanding 4-1 lead in the match.
No way you're comboing this! What? At all. What is he doing? He finally misses on some of the easier patterns at the end here, saving Tuna's score.
But it wasn't meant to be. That one miss from Utami at the end of the map, his only miss throughout the entire map, would be the deciding factor as Tuna would negate Utami's breakpoint advantage with a breakpoint of his own. And Tuna would capitalize on it on his own pick to tie the match at 3-3. Flying Tuna would take his first lead of the match with his second breakpoint in a row to give him a 4-3 advantage. And on Tuna's next pick, well, it's something you have to see for yourself.
for Utami.
Utami
Finds more misses to
Tuna
boot. Flying Tuna just barely is able to take it back. Flying Tuna misses as well. It's gonna come down to the very last slider.
Wait a sec, wait!
There's a 300 decide it.
The spin at the end! Utami wins!
Oh god! And he didn't notice the spinner! He didn't notice the spinner! At the end of the map, he started the spinner late, and Tuna actually loses because of it!
This time, it was Utami who would prevail on a map that went down to the wire, as Flying Tuna completely forgot about the spinner at the end of the map that would have otherwise secured him the map win. Instead, this match was now tied at 4 apiece. Both players would trade break points on their next picks, and now this match was tied at 5. But on Utami's final pick, Flying Tuna would secure his 4th break point in a row, putting him at match point with a 6-5 lead with one more pick at his disposal. Utami needed to secure one last break point to extend the match to tiebreaker, otherwise Flying Tuna would become the champion. And this map pick showed that you should never assume the victor until it's all over.
Tuna finds a slider break. Tuna finds a slider break, and Utami is able to hold the combo. It's less than a quarter of the map left. We're into the final
Tuna
seconds.
no walks.
Tuna chain misses. Tuna chain misses. Drops the accuracy. Utami is able to hold on.
No,
95%
it's
accuracy for
Tiebreaker.
Utami. Chain misses. He chain misses the ending. But Tuna is not holding on to high combo. No, Utami drops a ton of combo again. Tuna drops as well. It's down to the very end of the map. But it's Utami at the end, 20k score lead. Chain misses for both of them. Keep it even with Utami holding on to barely any score lead. And we are into tiebreaker.
In the most chaotic fashion, this crazy match was going to the tiebreaker map. Corsair's Close 2021. Grand Finals reset. Every map being as close as it can get and bringing up the intensity. There was no way to describe the emotions this match evokes. And as both players prepared for the 13th and final map of this Grand Finals reset, it would mark the beginning of the end for this incredible match. With the nature of this match and all the close maps, all someone needed to do was hold a massive combo advantage to ensure their victory. Starting out, it was Tuna who had the combo advantage, but a break on the 1/3 section meant that Utami could close things out with his massive combo advantage. The finish line was in sight, but then he broke his combo. Flying Tuna would come up absolutely clutch and hold a combo of more than 1100 to secure a massive score lead which he would never relinquish. It was an incredible ending to an unforgettable match. For Tuna, everyone will remember this match as yet another iconic moment in his legendary career. Out of all of his tourney wins, this might have been his craziest win yet. But history often forgets those who fall victim to these types of stories. In moments of glory where there emerges a champion, there has to be someone who loses. And in times like these, oftentimes this person turns out to be an outcast in the grand scheme of history. Second place is just never good enough to anyone else. Why remember the person who finishes behind the person who won it all? People don't remember the loser of championship deciding matches as an incredible challenger or for their amazing accomplishment. No, people remember them as the person who came up just one step short. Their sorrow left to be forgotten in time or sometimes mocked behind the triumph of the champion. History is cruel. Just like life itself, if you can't move on, fix the mistakes, and fill all the holes, it will leave you behind without a second thought. In his moment of weakness, all Utami could do was cry as his greatest chance at glory slipped away. But no one saw it that way. History really does forget those who fall short. And if they're not careful, defeats like these are ones they will truly never recover from. But from the moments that transpired, how do you possibly recover from something like this? This loss would always linger in the back of Utami's mind, but he would press on. And perhaps surprisingly, his tournament results were not being hindered. He took 3rd place at Finnish Duo Cup 2021, 5th to 6th at Suichi Spring Cup 2021, and 1st at Centaria Open 2021. It was a good sign that he took the heartbreaking experience just a few months ago in stride and continued to play his heart out. At least, that's what we could say for team tournaments. It seemed that the loss at Corsair's Close seemed to have some tangible effects on Utami in 1v1 tournaments, as the very next 1v1 tournament he participated in, Yaz's Summer Cup 2021, would result in his worst 1v1 tournament placement in half a year. It's plausible that without a team, Utami's mentality changed after what happened at Corsair's Closed. With teammates, he could at least have someone to fall back on, and someone to remind him just how great of a player he really is. But when left to his own merits, whenever he would underperform, he had no one to help him stay locked in, and his mind could possibly be reminded of his shortcomings exemplified by the events of Corsair's Closed. But regardless, it was time for him to go back to where it all started 2 years ago at North America Tournament 2021. And of course, with its 1v1 format, he had to rely on himself and himself only to make a run. With his first match taking place just 1 week after the end of courses closed, could he put the pieces of his shattered confidence back together? NAT 2021 was underway, and Utami looked strong as he qualified as the number 2 seed of the tournament. He would beat Trins 5-1 with relative ease, but in his next match against Matthew, things got a bit testy. Matthew would storm out to a quick 4-1 lead, reaching match point and putting Utami on the ropes. This was looking eerily similar to courses closed, where he would be inexplicably sent to the losers bracket very early. Fate, in its cruel nature, seemed like it wanted Utami to live through his past yet again. Or at least, that's what it looked like on the surface. Out of nowhere, Utami would win the next 3 maps in a row to force a tiebreaker. And by a margin of just 6,000 points, Utami would win the tiebreaker and complete his comeback to win the match 5-4, keeping his winners bracket run alive. This was way too close for comfort, but regardless, Utami avoided the early upset and moved on to face off against Exarch. Just as long as he avoided the high-stress matches, he should be fine. But of course, that is much easier said than done. There is only one word that could describe Utami's winners bracket run: tension. Not a single second passed where either him or his opponent could breathe with how close their matches were. Against Exarch in the round of 16, Utami would get off to a hot start and take a 4-1 lead with a double breakpoint advantage. But Exarch would take one of those breakpoints back and close Utami's lead to just 4-3. However, Utami would hold on to his lead to win 6-4, including an FC on the final map to move on to winners quarterfinals where he would face Ryu. Both players would trade maps back and forth, none of them getting more than a single map ahead of each other. There even was a map between the two of them that was decided by less than 2,000 points. Ignore that number, by the way. Eventually, with neither player gaining a significant advantage over the other, this match would be decided with a tiebreaker, and Utami's much higher combo would propel him to victory. God damn it, it's literally everywhere, you can't escape. After yet another tiebreaker victory, Utami would advance to the winners bracket semifinals where he would play against Kablaze. And in similar fashion to his match against Ryu, neither player would get more than 1 map ahead of the other as they continue to trade map win after map win. And of course, this meant that this match was going down to the tiebreaker. This was the 3rd tiebreaker Utami would have to play in 4 matches, but that didn't seem to matter as he would prevail after getting a huge combo on the tiebreaker map. Even though it seemed like he was going to pass out in the end with how much his cursor was shaking, he was moving on to winners finals with a guaranteed 3rd place finish. But he wasn't done yet. There was still work to do. Utami would meet Osu's rising star, Zudinator, in winners finals. And with a trip to the grand finals on the line between these 2 players, all eyes were on them to see the events that would transpire. Both players would win their first 2 map picks, but it was Utami who would take the first breakpoint to reach a 3-2 lead with his pick coming up. But Zudi would immediately tie the match back up at 3 when she FC'd Utami's pick to take a breakpoint of her own. Utami would follow this up with yet another breakpoint, and this time he would capitalize on his own map pick to take a 5-3 lead with a breakpoint advantage. All he needed to do now was win all of his future map picks. But considering who his opponent was and how tough her mentality is, it wouldn't be surprising to say that this lead wouldn't last long as Zudi would tie the match 5-5. Zudi would reach match point with a 6-5 lead with an absolute curb stomping on her last pick. But Utami would force a tiebreaker after winning his last pick of the match. This was the 4th tiebreaker Utami had to play in this tournament, and every single time prior, he would come out on top. This time, however, he would find himself at a bit of a deficit against Zudi, but by no means was he out of it just yet. If he could just focus, he could bring things back. And he conceded his mentality halfway through the map. This map was over the moment Utami thought it was over. And at that point, he still had a chance to win if he just tried. You would think that in a tiebreaker of one of the biggest 1v1 tournaments of the year, in winners finals nonetheless, you would at least try to do your best until it's actually over. But whether it's PTSD from his loss at courses closed or if his mentality was already trashed with how many close matches he played in this tournament, seeing him practically give up despite having many chances to come back was not fun to see. It looked bad. Really bad. We'll get more in depth into this in a little bit, but keep this in mind for now, because outbursts like this are nothing out of the ordinary. Anyways, this loss meant that Utami would be sent down to losers finals where he would play Fancy Lad, whom he would beat 7-4 to make it to the grand finals and get his run back against Zudinator. And on his quest for redemption, it was as if he turned into a completely different player as he beat Zudi 7-1 to reset the bracket almost effortlessly. And almost as easily as the first match, Utami would win the second match at Grand Finals 7-3 to become the NAT 2021 champion. These Grand Finals were just the Utami show as he dominated on all fronts to win the tournament. It showed that at his peak, he is an unstoppable force. Only 2 years had passed since his first tournament appearance, which was in this very same tournament 2 years ago. And now, he won the tournament that started it all for him. With his rise to superstardom, there was one team that needed his presence to make it far. The same team he always wanted to be a part of ever since he started playing the game. And that team was the United States at the Osu World Cup. In the time between NAT and the 2021 Osu World Cup, Utami managed to win Old Map Fantasy World Cup for his 4th tournament badge, as well as set his first 1000 PP score with a hidden double time FC on Wizard's Tower. But as the summer ended and fall came around, it was time for the Osu World Cup. It was pretty much a given that Utami would be on the United States roster for the Osu World Cup with what he had done in recent time. But one thing that surprised everyone else was that this US team seemed weaker than ever before. The United States won the last 3 renditions of the Osu World Cup, and 5 of the last 6. Every single one of those years, they were the favorites to win it all, but this year, it seemed like their time was up. Most people pointed fingers at Vaxei's absence from the roster, while others mentioned that this team was bringing in 4 rookies competing in their first OWC. But perhaps the most convincing argument was that this team's mentality was questionable at best.
This is the single worst mental team that could ever be assembled in
Oh my god, yes.
Whether these were genuine criticisms or everyone was just tired of the US winning every year, everyone began to count them out. But just because everyone had their doubts doesn't mean that this team should be written off just yet. The United States emerged from the qualifiers as the number 1 seed, and they would win their first 2 matches against Uruguay and Brazil without losing a single map 5-0. But things got a little shaky in winners quarterfinals against the United Kingdom. They would still win, but this match was much closer than the 6-3 scoreline would suggest. Many of the maps that went in favor of the US were decided by very small margins, and the US found themselves down the entire match until they would rally off 4 map wins in a row to win the match. Although they still won, in contrast to years past, this US team looked much worse. While past US rosters would easily breeze past the early rounds of the tournament, dropping 3 maps in the winners quarterfinals was the most amount of maps lost by the United States in a single match before the semifinals since 2017, which was the last time they lost OWC. A 6-2 win over Hong Kong was much more characteristic of the United States teams of the past, but now it was time for the real test. Their opponent in winners finals would be their fiercest competitor in recent times and the favorites to win it all, Germany. The narratives surrounding this match are simple. The United States team is regressing, Team Germany is better than ever before, and this would be the year they would prevail over the Americans. Last year's grand finals saw these 2 teams meeting up, and while the United States would prevail in a close tiebreaker 7-6, it was clear that Germany had the potential to be the ones to end their reign. With all of this in mind, it was simply impossible to not think that Germany would come out on top. But remember who they were playing. Just because the US looked worse on paper didn't mean they didn't deserve to be there. They qualified number 1 overall for a reason. And as the match started, everyone knew that this would be a match that would go down in history. Both teams traded map win after map win. Neither team would get a significant advantage until the United States took a break point to go up 4-2. But this lead would immediately disappear as Germany would tie up the match 4-4. The United States would take yet another break point to get to match point with a 6-4 lead, but Germany would once again claw their way back to tie the match at 6, forcing tiebreaker. For the 2nd year in a row, these 2 teams would play each other in a tiebreaker, and what would happen in this tiebreaker would be the most bizarre outcome a match could possibly end with. The tourney client froze for what felt like an eternity, then resumed as normal. Except for Fancy Lad. It was at this moment that Fancy's power would flicker on and off, completely disconnecting him from the match. The map ended, and no one knew what was going on. The tourney client showed that the US won, but the MP link showed that Germany won, and it was just a mess. The commentators scrambled to find information for what was happening as the tournament officials were forced to make a decisive ruling. But it was eventually decided that the United States won this match. Since Fancy Lad had a known score on the client, it was counted as his final score for the entire beat map. And it just so happened that his score was the difference needed to decide the victor. Even if they could have won with technicalities, the German team didn't want to accept this victory because they felt like it was a low blow. And so the United States were moving on to the winner's side of the grand finals in the weirdest way possible. And as everyone expected, these 2 teams would face each other again in the grand finals for the 2nd year in a row. This time around, things were possibly even crazier than their previous match. The United States would take the first breakpoint of the match to take a 3-1 lead, but Germany would win 4 maps in a row, including 2 breakpoints in a row to take a 5-3 lead of their own. Throughout both of their matches, this was the first time that Germany had a lead at any point, and with a breakpoint advantage, they were knocking on the door for a bracket reset in the grand finals. However, after winning their next pick, the United States would answer back with a breakpoint of their own to tie the match 5-5, and won their final pick of the match to take a 6-5 lead. While they were on match point, they needed to win Germany's final pick to win the match and the Osu World Cup. Otherwise, both teams would be playing in their 2nd consecutive tiebreaker in a row this tournament. But Germany's final pick turned out to be costly. Germany's final pick of the match, which was DT3, was a hidden trap from the United States. Germany thought they could brute force their way into the tiebreaker with the raw speed, but this was secretly a pick the United States would feast on. And so, they decided to end things right there and right now. All 4 players on the US side put up monster scores to close out the 2021 Osu World Cup 7-5 with a blowout on the final map. Against all odds, and to the dismay of many spectators, the United States won their 4th Osu World Cup in a row. For Arison, Takedo, Exarch, and Utami, this was their first OWC victory in just their first appearance. And Utami, on top of being crowned Osu champion for the first time in his career, was awarded Rookie of the Year for the 2021 Osu World Cup. For a year filled with triumph, heartbreak, and moments of weakness, this was a perfect ending to an unforgettable year for Utami. He had now officially elevated himself to a status very few other players can say they've reached, and he has reached the summit at Osu's most prestigious event. And as the year came to a close, it was surely a year that not only put Utami on the map, but it was a year that solidified Utami as the most feared players to face. With all he accomplished and all he experienced, how could you possibly top all of that in 2022? Well, how about repeatedly setting score after score in such a short amount of time you climb from rank 30 all the way to rank 13 in just 2 days? On January 15th and 16th, Utami would set a myriad of scores to literally cut his rank in half in 2 days. How do you explain something like this? Not even Utami could explain what he did.
Dude, I cannot believe what the f just happened tonight. This is not supposed to happen.
He had all of the momentum in the world, and it seemed like nothing was going to slow him down, except himself. Not even a day would pass from his massive pop-off until his mentality would take a massive nosedive. In contrast to the highs he experienced in 2021, this was a huge low point for Utami, leading to massive Twitter outbursts. This outburst in particular made him look terrible, especially considering it made him seem ungrateful to be where he was and that he was just flat out attention seeking. The final nail in this coffin was this tweet that gained traction within the Osu community for all the wrong reasons. If you could name one weakness Utami had, it was these outbursts. And with how frequent they were and how bad this one was in particular, it was met with a lot of criticism and backlash. When Reddit threads like this pop up, it's probably a sign that you should keep yourself in check. Even Fancy Lad, the most wholesome person on the entire planet, had to step in and say something about it. And he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. It was a frustrating time, one that lingered in all of our minds the moment we saw those tweets. And thankfully, whether it was a change of mindset or just a classic serving of humble pie, this would be the last outburst Utami would have, and he would continue pushing onward. At least, it was his last outburst for now. But with a more positive mindset, it allowed him to make waves in the community once again. On February 5th, 2022, he would set his first 1000 PP score after his previous one on Wizard's Tower was nerfed with a hidden double time FC on Songs compilation 2. And the very next day, he would do it again with a hidden double time FC on Sotarx's United. In the tournament scene, he would win his 6th badge after taking first place at America's Draft Showdown 2022, which featured a loser's bracket run where his team would win 6 matches in a row to win the entire tournament. Soon after, he would win his 7th badge at Hitomi's Trifecta tournament with an even more impressive loser's bracket run, winning 9 matches in a row to win the tournament. It was safe to say he was back and better than ever, and as further proof of this, he would continue to soar up the Osu rankings. He would overtake Vaxei to become the #1 player in the United States on April 29th, 2022. And soon after, he would enter the top 10 on May 25th with a hidden double time 1 miss on Kusu Reisha with 962 PP. Once again, he was ready to dominate, and with the next rendition of Corsair's Close coming up, could he redeem himself with the heartbreak he experienced a year ago? It was time for a bit of a revenge tour. Utami would qualify for the main bracket as the 2nd seed, and his first opponent would be Sigi, whom he would beat 6-1. And his next opponent would bring us a match made in heaven. For us as spectators at least, not for the players. Utami's next matchup would be against mrekk. It was a bit unfortunate that these two players would meet up so early in the bracket, but it gave us an intense match to watch. mrekk would start off strong with a break point on Utami's first pick of the match, and after both players traded maps back and forth, it was mrekk who had a 4-2 lead with a breakpoint advantage. Utami needed to win all of his future map picks and steal a breakpoint back from mrekk. But on his very next map pick, things got really close really quickly.
This one, both players dropping roughly the same 100s at the ending here, so it's going to keep the score lead just barely in Utami's favor, and it seems to be that both players are going to look to hold.
Both players would FC Nomad too, but Utami would just barely come away with a map win thanks to his slightly better accuracy, closing mrekk's lead to 4-3. And with an insane score on Hidden 1, Utami would take the breakpoint he needed and tied the match at 4-all. Utami would FC yet again to take a 5-4 lead, his first lead of the entire match, but mrekk still had his final pick to force a tiebreaker. And on that pick, this happened.
You have no room for break right now if you are either of these players. As mrekk misaims a triple, that just threw the pick away at the end. If Utami doesn't break, he loses.
Utami has to FC still to bring this back. He can't miss. He absolutely cannot miss, but if he holds through this stream, he's going to have it. And there goes the lead. Oh my goodness, Utami is going to take this in the last second.
An unfortunate break from mrekk and a clutch hold from Utami was the decisive factor, as Utami would win the match 6-4, which included him winning the last 4 maps in a row. He was on a mission, and his revenge tour would not be stopped so easily. This propelled him into the winner's bracket semifinals, where he would face Vaxei, and somehow this match would be closer than his match against mrekk. Utami would take the first breakpoint of the match to give him a 3-1 lead with his pick coming up next, but Vaxei would immediately answer with his own breakpoint and tied the match at 3 apiece. And both players would trade maps back and forth on their own picks, resulting in a 5-5 tie, meaning this match would go to tiebreaker. But similar to last year's grand finals, Utami would fall in the tiebreaker map thanks to a massive combo from his opponent. Vaxei just dominated the tiebreaker map, and with only 3 misses towards the end, he sent Utami down to the loser's bracket. For the second year in a row, Utami was forced to make another run in the loser's bracket, but his route was even more treacherous than before. First, he had to play the up-and-coming tournament superstar Malashevsky, who had beaten him in the grand finals of Pandemonium Intercontinental Showdown a few months prior. But this time, it was Utami who would come out on top as he defeated Malashevsky 7-3. His next opponent was Arnold 24-24, but Utami would dominate on all fronts, winning the match 7-1 to move on to the loser's bracket grand finals, where he would get his run back against Vaxei. This match, well, let's just say Utami won 7-1 because Vaxei didn't really want to play at this time. We'll just leave it at that. But this meant that Utami would once again put up an impressive loser's bracket run to make it to the grand finals of Courses Closed for the second year in a row. And waiting for him there was Zudinator for the ultimate rematch of NAT 2021. The first match between the two of them showed that Utami's momentum was way too much to handle, as Utami would win 7 maps in a row to reset the bracket 7-1. Once again, the grand finals between these two was going all the way to a bracket reset. But this time, things were much closer. Both players would win their first 3 picks of the second match, but Utami would take the first breakpoint of the match to give himself a 4-3 lead with his pick coming up next. Now he was in a position to relinquish the heartbreak last year gave him. All he needed to do was win all of his map picks to win the tournament, as Zudi would not surrender another breakpoint again. Utami held on to a 6-5 lead with his last pick of the match to potentially close out the match and the tournament. And on this map, Utami had the score lead, but Zudi built up the combo necessary to make a comeback. And the ending of this beat map is something you have to see for yourself.
And she needs a break from Utami to feel secure in this pick right now.
There it is!
And Utami finds the break!
She's gonna bring this back! There is no way! Oh no, the break from her!
Oh, it's gonna be so...
And now it's just on a knife's edge. There's nothing in it. It's 8K. Oh, and Utami breaks more!
Oh, he's throwing it back again! She's got a hold! This is gonna be it in the ending of the map. The last couple of seconds, there's a hard tech section. She finds a break. It's 2K difference. Utami's not missing.
He holds through the ending. He builds up 200 combo. I think that might have been enough even with 5K. It's gonna come down to the last seconds though.
Utami has it with the combo
Who's
into
gonna
the
hold?
ending. Oh,
and Utami holds it by 7,000 points.
Pure insanity. With an unpredictable ending to this match, Utami came out on top 7-5 and officially completed his revenge tour to earn his 8th profile badge. The pain of years past was gone, and Utami could finally breathe again as he relished in his triumph. Perhaps the best part of the match wasn't the match itself, but the amount of respect these two had for each other and the love the community gave them for this incredible match. It was a win for everyone involved. The only thing that could rival something like this was a tournament that could bring players closer than ever before in its own special way. And thankfully, there was a new tournament series making its debut with the goal of doing just that. On July 3rd, 2022, BTMC would announce his very first Osu tournament, the Round Table. It was a tournament unlike any other, as it was the very first IRL Osu Invitational tournament featuring some of the best players the game has to offer. And 2 days later, Utami was announced to be one of the invitees to the Round Table. But at the same time, another massive Osu tournament was underway. Charlie's Perfect Math Class is the second Osu tournament hosted by Moist Critical, and with its massive $10,000 prize pool, it was sure to attract all the best Osu players throughout the entire world. Utami, of course, would be playing in both of these tournaments. First came the qualifiers for Cpmc, followed by the group stage. Utami would emerge from the qualifiers as the first seed, and would win his group without losing a single match, earning him a spot in the winner's bracket for the final bracket stage. This wasn't much of a surprise, as Utami would reach his peak rank at number 4 in the world on June 30th, which was in the middle of Cpmc's progression. With how scheduling for both the round table and Cpmc worked out, both tournaments would finish on the same weekend. It was shaping up to be the greatest weekend in Osu history, but this meant that Utami would be forced to play his matches at Cpmc on a different setup while everyone gets to play from the comfort at home. Actually, considering how bad his setup is at home, this might have worked to his advantage.
Low-key, you wanna know what kind of chair I'm rocking?
Jokes aside, playing away from the setup you are used to is a hindrance. Whether it's placebo or there are tangible differences, something will just not feel right elsewhere. It's a strange feeling that you can only feel when you try it yourself, but starting out, it looked like Utami wasn't affected by this at all. He would take down WhiteCat 5-3 and then Bartek 5-2, guaranteeing himself a 3rd place finish and a good share of the $10,000 prize pool. Immediately afterwards, he had to play his matches in the round table, and he would beat Your Cute 5-0 to end a chaotic Saturday, setting up tomorrow where he would be partaking in both Cpmc and the round table for a championship Sunday for the ages. Regardless of what happened at either of these tournaments, history was going to be made. But the question was, could Utami embrace this never-before-seen challenge? First up was winners finals of Cpmc. There he would face a familiar foe, Malashevsky. But Malashevsky would be the one to prevail this time, as he won 5-3 and advanced into the winner's side of Grand Finals. In the losers bracket, he would play against Ciccone, who was putting on a miraculous run no one saw coming. Their match would go down to the tiebreaker, but Ciccone made Utami another one of his victims on a Cinderella story, eliminating him at 3rd place 5-4. The pressure of the moment got to Utami in the end, and it was not a good start to his jam-packed Sunday at all. Starting off the day without a single match win is a bad omen, but no matter how much it hurt, he had to brace himself for the final day of the round table. In just the span of a few hours, Utami had to go from playing his final matches at Cpmc to playing his remaining matches at the round table. This was going to be a test of both mental strength to overcome his previous losses, as well as a test of endurance. His first Sunday match put him against the pioneer of the Kwon grind set, Ryuke. Utami would put up yet another dominating performance as he would win the first 5 maps in a row, ultimately winning the match 6-1. It was clear that Utami had one thing on his mind. He wanted to win this tournament, and badly. His next opponent would be a familiar foe, I'm a Fancy Lad. His trip to the winners bracket finals included a dominating 6-2 upset over mrekk that no one in the building or the Twitch chat could have expected. And just like any other historic tournament, it was time for things to get crazy. With how well these two were playing, it was clear that the person who would win this match would be the one who doesn't make a single mistake. And that's exactly what both of these players did. They played their picks to perfection. Not a single break point was surrendered as both players would trade maps back and forth. By the time the 10th map went in Fancy Lad's favor, it went down to the tiebreaker to decide who was going to move on to the grand finals in winner's side. The tiebreaker was underway, and straight out the gate, Utami broke his combo. Except, instead of getting immediately discouraged and giving up midway through the map like he used to, he kept on playing. Whether it was a reformed mindset or the heat of the moment in this historic tournament, he worked to build his combo back up. But Fancy Lad kept on holding on to his combo. But a chance arose. Fancy would drop his combo on a jump section, but Utami managed to hit it, and now it was all in his control to bring this match back in his favor. All he needed to do was continue holding on to his combo, which he did as the lead swung over to his side. Intense jump sections would come and he would keep holding, and soon his combo would eclipse the 1100 mark. Eventually, he would find a miss, but Fancy Lad would find a miss on a tiny burst, and as quickly as it was formed, the comeback was complete. Utami would hold on to his combo until the end of the beat map, and clutched out a win on the tiebreaker to defeat Fancy Lad 6-5 to earn a trip to the winner's side of Grand Finals. He stood there triumphant in this intense victory, but things weren't done yet. He wanted it all. But all he could do now is sit back and watch who his opponent in the Grand Finals would be. Wait, he did. And he did a lot of it. While it might be great to know that you have a spot in the Grand Finals, waiting for the tournament to progress to decide your opponent might inadvertently ice you. And at the same time, someone constantly advancing in the loser's bracket could pick up a lot of momentum in the process. We've seen this happen multiple times with Utami. His wins at NAC 2021 and Corsair's Close 2022 came in this fashion. But now, the tables have turned, and now he was the one waiting for his challenger to emerge from the loser's bracket with all of the momentum at their disposal. Eventually, he knew that his opponent would either be Fancy Lad or mrekk, which was the matchup in losers finals. Either way, it was going to be a tough test, and all he could do is sit back and watch who he would have to play. And in true nerve-wracking fashion, this would go down to the tiebreaker. And in that tiebreaker, we would witness something unbelievable.
And
what am I
doing
watching?
He is finishing it out. Comfortably.
No way. No
I am
way.
astonished.
Mrekk, what are you doing?
What a legend.
Mrekk, are you
in the
serious?
Flesh, hitting everything non-stop, doesn't care, keep going, and he closes it out.
Are you serious?
Mrekk! What? A full combo on the tiebreaker to move on to the grand finals here at the Round Table 2022. One versus one invitational here in Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why he is the rank 1 player.
Mrekk would create the absolute highlight of the tournament thus far in FC Kagari Nakabara Juji, which would have been just the second FC on the beatmap leaderboard had he played with score V1. For us as spectators, we knew that we were in a fun treat in the grand finals. But for the players, this was as far from the truth as it could possibly get. To say that both players were nervous to play in their match in the grand finals is a severe understatement. For Mrekk, he previously tweeted out that Utami was one of the people he did not want to play in a tourney match. And considering that Utami made it all the way to the grand finals without losing a single match, he knew that he was in for the ultimate test and made him a tiny bit nervous, as emotionless as he can be. He knows the things Utami is capable of in tournaments, and his performance thus far showed that. From Utami's perspective, 4 hours had passed since his match against Fancy Lad ended. Not only was he forced to stay warm, he had to watch Mrekk build up steam in the losers bracket and witnessed firsthand possibly the clutchest way to close out a tiebreaker in the losers finals of a historic event. Oh, and if you couldn't tell from my videos about him, he would have to play the undisputed #1 player in the world. A player capable of breaking the limits of the game at will. Both players are fully capable of reaching heights no one thought were possible. And with the mounting pressure of the round table, everything that led up to this moment, and the narrative surrounding this moment, it was too good to not watch. Arguably the best tournament player in the game right now, and the #1 player in the world squared off in the grand finals of a historic event, and the only thing that could make this better was if we got a close match to make things even more intense. And the match that followed, well, it's unlikely that we will ever see anything like it ever again. Every match starts off with the rolls, and things didn't get off to a good start for Utami, who rolled a 1. That's fine, since all the roll really does is determine pick and ban order, but perhaps that bad omen lingered in Utami's mind, as he would immediately lose his first pick of the match and Mrekk took a quick 2-0 lead in the grand finals. But Utami would take it right back to cut the lead to 2-1 with a huge closing combo, and he capitalized on his next pick to tie it up at 2-2. Things were getting intense. Maybe too intense, as both players agreed to take a break to eat some food and take a break with how long the tournament had dragged on. Their choice of food was hot dogs, and Mrekk decided to add a chocolate donut on top of it. Albeit, it wasn't really his. The match would resume, and both players got right back to business. It seemed like the sugar from the chocolate donut would aid Mrekk to a destructive map win to take a 3-2 lead on his next pick, but Utami would answer back with a dominating map win of his own in stylish fashion.
Utami! What?
Okay, man, you already proved that you're going to win this point.
Yeah,
what
you can
is
stop
this?
now.
You don't even have to. You
Sir?
can stop playing right
sir?
now if you wanted to.
Sir?
Holy Lord!
Sir?
What are you doing? Utami, the triangle! Oh my god! Oh my god!
What a legendary play.
Dude,
He put up a picture of Cookiezi to the camera because he and everyone else knows that he just went Cookiezi mode, and the match was tied 3-3. Both confidence and swagger entered Utami's veins, and this would help him take his first lead of the match with a break point on Mrekk's next pick by out-aiming him on No Mod 1 to go up 4-3. Utami's next pick was Solid State Squad, and the outcome of this beat map was only something that only 2 of the game's best players could possibly accomplish.
Both players play out of their minds.
No way. Is it really down to accuracy?
I cannot believe that.
Oh my
I cannot
god!
believe it. Making it through those triples, followed by burst sliders, both sides.
Wait a second. This is supposed to be the grand final stage. FCs are not supposed to be expected, yet we're seeing 2 of them coming in from Utami and Mrekk.
Oh my god! Welcome to the round table! You guys are insane!
A double FC in the grand finals of the round table? Talk about madness. Utami would end up winning this map thanks to his slightly higher accuracy, giving him a 5-3 lead. But now, it was Mrekk's turn to go on a run. He would win his own pick to cut Utami's lead to 5-4, and a monstrous combo on Utami's pick would allow him to take the breakpoint back and tie the matchup at 5 apiece. And on his last pick of the match, mrekk would make it 3 map wins in a row to take a 6-5 lead. Down, but not out, Utami played his final pick of the match to near perfection with just 1 miss on Louder Than Steel with Hard Rock, tying the match at 6-6 and forcing tiebreaker. And we wouldn't have it any other way. Looking at the pool, it was destined that these two would play Yomiuri to decide it all. As a bit of backstory, both of these players would try their hardest to be the first FC on the map to claim the $3,333 bounty. While neither player was able to do it, it was going to be incredible to see a duel between 2 of the game's best players who grinded this map. Wait, they banned it? Anyways, this tiebreaker was going to be played on Exit This Earth's Atomosphere, an absolute orgasmic song that will live up to the intensity of the moment. This song has a bit of a build-up that serves as a free combo section, but as the saying goes, nothing in life is guaranteed.
These players are going to walk home with $1,727 in their pocket. Oh my god.
On the section that was supposed to be free combo, Utami literally missed in the tiebreaker of the grand finals of the round table. It's a miss that puts him in such a massive disadvantage that he audibly said out loud that this match was going to bracket reset while he was playing. mrekk would build a massive combo, but after a miss, Utami would soon bring things back to even, and at the rocket section, he had the combo advantage. But mrekk was already building up a massive combo behind him as well. And after the next free combo section where Utami didn't randomly miss this time, the situation was clear. The next break from either player would prove costly, unless... Both players break at the exact same time. With combos reset as the final drop approached, it was time for both players to play out of their minds. And this drop seemed to hit harder than ever before.
Table 2022 1v1 Invitational. Sakamada 1 is literally not too far behind.
In the driver's seat currently, Utami, but that can change at any second.
Oh,
we only have a 20k difference here. Sakamada will have to pull it together here towards the end. He's gonna need Utami to break. So close.
And here we go, the last drop! Everyone is on the edge of their seats. Everyone is trying to figure out who is going to win. It is so close. It could be even.
Utami's gonna break!
Utami finally breaks.
Sakamada has an opportunity here to break.
On
to close the gap here.
But he plays that well. It is still a 10,000 point difference, ladies and gentlemen. The streams are coming in. Is it going to come down to the outro? Utami is still in the lead.
That's it.
Unless we see an uncharacteristic break, I think it's going over to Utami. I don't think we're seeing a bracket reset. I think Utami has done it.
What an incredible
It's over!
Match.
It's over. Utami has the lead in combo. He has the lead in accuracy. Sakamada 1 is not going to find any sort of opportunity to bring it back. And as we're getting into the last few moments of this map, the round table is coming to a close. The 1 versus 1 16-player invitational in Los Angeles is in its final moments. And here at the final slider, it's over. Utami has done it. He's proven himself on the world-class stage. Oh my god.
He had done it. In possibly the most intense grand final ever witnessed in Osu history, Utami would come out on top. He prevailed after it all seemed lost at the start, after his heartbreak at Cpmc, and after all the hard work he put in leading into this moment. He became the round table champion, and the first night of the round table. The Utami of old would have given up after the early miss. He would have written off the beat map and ended everything for himself before he even gave himself the chance to come back. But the new Utami, the reformed Utami from all the heartbreak, outbursts, and low points throughout his journey, stuck through it all and gave him the chance he needed to prevail. And that was the difference he needed to make history.
Literally one of the most insane matches that we've ever watched, that will probably ever be set in Osu history.
Looking back at it, Utami's story has everything. It has triumph, heartbreak, a downward spiral, redemption, and the ascent to immortality. From his beginnings as an aspiring player who looked up to the game's best, to playing in the tournaments he always envisioned himself playing in ever since he discovered the game, it's heartwarming to know that he accomplished his goals. Although, with some of his meltdowns, it was reasonable to assume that he was entitled, and it might have been hard to like him at times. But not only did he progress as a player, he progressed as a person and grew from someone who would seemingly berate himself for attention on Twitter to becoming a wholesome figure within the community. Utami's rise to glory, the trials of defeat and anguish, and his redemption as both a person and a player is similar to a lot of protagonists in a lot of media. It's surprising how much that metaphor holds true. But sometimes, simple metaphors like this are all you need to summarize someone's story. But with a story like this, everything he went through and what he accomplished, One statement holds true. Utami is Osu's chosen one.
Undeniably, North American player.
Utami ultimately prevails on top.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
What the hell?
Utami!
Thanks for watching. It's a bit of a terrible idea to record this right now at like 2 a.m., but we'll roll with it. If you want to keep up with my stuff, feel free to join my Discord server with the link in the description. I am very active there, and if you want a place to hang out, it's a really nice place. Feel free to check out my other social media links in the description, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.